Admiral Kress peered through the observation deck of the Galactic Council flagship at the small blue-green planet. Earth looked so insignificant against the vast backdrop of space. Yet the humans had managed to halt the advance of the most powerful armada in the known universe with just a simple message. "Are you certain this is wise?" asked Commander Trell, his 4 digits nervously tapping against the metallic console. "These humans have no significant space fleet, primitive weapons technology, and barely a century of spaceflight experience." Admiral Kress's facial ridges darkened. The Council voted. "We established diplomatic contact rather than proceed with standard colonization protocol." Because of a message? Trell's voice carried disbelief. "A threat from a species that can barely leave its own grappy well." "Not a threat," corrected Kress. "A warning." The message had been simple, broadcast on all frequencies when the Council's scout ships entered the Sol system. Asterisk humans gave just one warning. "Our peace came at a great cost. We hope you choose wisely." Asterisk. No explanations, no elaborations. Just those 16 words that somehow caused the Council's most battle-hardened military leaders to vote for caution. 3 rotation cycles later, the human representative boarded the flagship. He was a weathered man with gray hair and calm eyes that seemed to hold the weight of centuries. "Ambassador Tom," Kress greeted, using the human's simple name as requested in the preliminary communications. The human nodded. "Admiral, thank you for agreeing to talks instead of invasion." Kress's inner eyelids flickered in surprise at the directness. "The Council respects strength and wisdom. Your message suggested both." Tom smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Then perhaps you'll understand our position better after you see what I've brought." The object Tom placed on the conference table was disappointingly ordinary. A small data cube, primitive by Council standards. "This contains historical records from our last global conflict," Tom explained. "What we call the Silent War." "Why show us your military history?" asked Trell, who had been assigned as security observer. "Because it wasn't a war against other humans," Tom replied quietly. "It's the reason we value peace so dearly." The data was shocking. 50 years ago, Earth had been visited by a species the humans called the Visitors. Unlike the Council's approach, the Visitors had come with overwhelming force and immediate demands for resources. The humans had appeared to submit. Then they had disappeared. Not all at once. There was no mass exodus, no dramatic last stand. They simply began to vanish, individual by individual, family by family, until the Visitors found themselves policing empty cities. The Council representatives watched in growing horror as the historical footage showed what happened next. The Visitors began to die, not from weapons or direct attacks, but from invisible agents, engineered viruses that targeted their specific biology, nanobots that assembled themselves from ordinary dust, autonomous systems that infiltrated their technology. "We never declared war," Tom narrated as the footage continued. "We never engaged in direct combat. We simply made their existence here impossible." The final statistics were staggering. Visitor casualties, 98.7%. Human casualties in the Silent War, 26.3% of global population. "You sacrificed a quarter of your own people," Kress stated, unable to mask the horror in her voice. Tom's face remained impassive. "Not sacrificed. Lost. To misunderstandings, to visitor reprisals, to our own weapons that we couldn't fully control. The cost of our freedom was devastating." "And yet you didn't pursue them beyond your system," noted Trell. "You had the capability." "We wanted peace, not revenge," Tom replied. "We always did. The warning we sent you was the same one we attempted to send them, but they wouldn't listen." The Council convened in private after reviewing the evidence. The debate was shorter than anyone expected. "They're bluffing," insisted the Marshal representative. "These recordings could be fabricated." "Our biological analysis confirms otherwise," countered the science director. "The pathogen signatures are real and terrifyingly sophisticated. What they did to the Visitors, they could adapt to any of our species." "They don't want to," Kress reminded them. "They've had 50 years to expand beyond their system, to hunt down the remaining Visitors. Instead, they'd built a thriving civilization and warned us away." The vote was unanimous. The Council would establish a diplomatic embassy on Earth and recognize human sovereignty over the Sol system. When Cress delivered the news to Ambassador Tom, she finally asked the question that had been troubling her. Why share this with us? You revealed your greatest weapons, your tactics. Tom looked out at the stars, his expression weary. Because those weren't our weapons, Admiral. Those were our desperate measures, our last resorts. What you saw was humanity at its most frightened and cornered. He turned to face her. We hope you'll get to know humanity at peace. Our art, our music, our endless curiosity. The silent war nearly destroyed us, not just in numbers, but in spirit. We're still healing. And the warning? Asked Cress. Was honest, Tom replied. Our peace came at a great cost, to ourselves most of all. We don't want to pay it again. And we don't want you to force us to make you pay it either. As the human ambassador departed, Cress understood what had truly halted the Council's advance. Not fear of human weaponry, but recognition of something universal, a species that valued peace precisely because they knew the terrible price of war. The humans hadn't threatened the Council. They had tried to spare them from learning the same lesson they had learned in blood and silence. And in doing so, perhaps they had given the galaxy something more valuable than conquest ever could. A chance for genuine understanding between the stars.